You think those tiny hands can handle a real weapon, little girl? That's the first thing Drill Sergeant Carl Steele Edwards ever said to me. And honestly, if you'd seen me, barely 10 years old, not even tall enough to reach the top shelf at home, you probably would have agreed with him. But what he didn't know was those hands. They belonged to the granddaughter of Master Sergeant William Ghost Johnson, a legend among Army snipers, the kind of man whose stories lived longer than most people's memories. And the day I picked up that rifle for the very first time, not only would I break every shooting record Greenwood had ever seen, but I'd blow the lid off a secret that had been buried in the West Virginia mountains longer than I'd been alive. Yeah, that happened, and it started like this. The morning was cold, just enough to make your breath hang in the air, and the shooting range looked even bigger when you were the only kid there, holding on to your crumpled application form like it was a life preserver. The smell of gun oil, that biting scent of metal and possibility, mixed with the clatter of distant shots. Mom had already left for work, hustling between jobs just to keep our tiny apartment, so every penny for that program fee, that was on me. The place had this intimidating energy, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, walls lined with old military photos, including one that looked just enough like Grandpa to make my heart skip. Edwards came out of his office like a storm cloud with a crew cut. Even at 45, the guy looked like he could bark down a tank. When I slid my application over, he didn't even bother to hide the smirk. "Youth program starts at 12, he said. "Come back when you're taller." But the flyer said 10, and I had the proof. My birth certificate, Mom's signature, all of it. For a second, his jaw tightened like he was grinding gravel. "Listen, sweetheart, this isn't summer camp. Real firearms, real risk. You sure you're ready?" I looked him straight in the eye. Like Grandpa always said, people can smell fear faster than they can read a resume, and told him I was ready. The laugh he let out made everyone else in the waiting room look up. "You probably can't even hold a pencil, let alone a .22, he said. That one stung, but I kept steady. My grandfather taught me guns aren't about size. It's about steady hands and focus. Now, here's where you'd think I'd win him over with my confidence, right? Not even close. He just leaned in, voice dripping sarcasm. Your grandpa let you hold his rifle while he did all the work. He couldn't have known how few memories I had of Grandpa, or how much every one of them mattered. I told him Grandpa had fought in 3 wars, and all I wanted was a chance to be why then. The whole waiting area was watching, parents shifting in their seats, kids whispering, and in the corner, Mrs. Walker, 74 years old, sipping her coffee like she'd seen it all. Turns out, during World War II, she'd built bullets that probably helped win the war, and she wasn't about to let Edwards brush me off without a fight. "Maybe you should let her try," she said, calm as you please. Edwards bristled. "This isn't a daycare," but Mrs. Walker just shot back. "Neither were those factories during the war, but somehow us weak women managed." That was the first time I thought about backing down, honestly. But then I remembered Grandpa's voice, telling me sometimes you've got to stand tall, even if your knees are shaking. "I can pay the full fee," I said, pulling out 3 months of crumpled dollar bills. Edwards hesitated, the room holding its breath, until someone else stepped in, the kind of twist you don't see coming. Colonel Arthur Campbell, retired but still walking like he owned every inch of the place, had been listening from the office. He looked at me, then at Edwards, and just said, "Problem here, Carl." Suddenly Edwards straightened up like a cadet on inspection. Campbell asked my name, and when I told him, his whole face changed. "Your grandfather wouldn't be William Johnson, would he?" I nodded, and for a second, the tough colonel looked like he might cry. "He was the best marksman I ever served with," he said, voice low. Now Edwards looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Campbell didn't waste a second. "If you're William Johnson's granddaughter, you have every right to be here. Carl, sign her up." Edwards grumbled about liability, but Campbell just cut him off. "The only liability is assuming a kid can't do something before you give them a shot." The mood shifted, parents nodding, kids sitting up straighter. Danny White, the range's star, suddenly less sure of himself. "I don't want special treatment," I said. "Just the same chance as everyone else." Campbell nodded. That's exactly what your grandfather would have said. And just like that, I was in. Edwards handed me the schedule, but I could tell he wasn't thrilled. As I left, I felt every eye in the place following me out, some hopeful, some doubtful, all waiting to see what I'd do. Outside, the mountains looked endless, the sky huge and blue, and for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could carry Grandpa's legacy. As I started walking home, Mrs. Walker caught up, her steps slow but steady. "Your grandfather would be proud," she said. "Don't let anyone say otherwise." I nodded, swallowing a lump in my throat. Through the window, Edwards and Campbell were arguing, but I wasn't worried. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. When it finally did, Greenwood was covered in fog, and my nerves were so bad I'd been up since before sunrise. I walked the 12 blocks in my best jeans and flannel, boots crunching on the frosty grass. The range felt different that day, official, almost sacred. A whiteboard covered in diagrams, chairs lined up with military precision, the smell of coffee mixing with gun oil. Edwards was there, clipboard in hand, as stiff as ever. But this time, he just nodded when I walked in. That's when I met Tina Roberts, the range safety officer. She had this easy confidence, dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp and kind. "You must be Hazel," she said, shaking my hand. "You've been around firearms before?" "A little," I told her, "but nothing like this." She smiled. "It's better to start with respect than think you know it all." I took a seat mid-row, close enough to see, far enough not to stick out. Then Sofia Rivera walked in, 30-something, sandy hair, military bearing you could spot from a mile away. I didn't know her yet, but something about her made me sit up straighter. Edwards started the course with his usual bark. "Safety isn't optional. If you don't take it seriously, you're out." That clear. Even Danny stopped joking. Edwards laid out the rules. Treat every firearm as if it's loaded. Never point it at anything you don't want destroyed. Keep your finger off the trigger. Always know your target and what's behind it. The basics, sure, but hearing them in that room, you felt the weight of them. Tina took over next, showing us the different firearms, her style more conversational but no less thorough. She said, "Strength isn't the most important factor in shooting, consistency is." That got some laughs from the older boys, but she just handed the rifle to volunteers, showing how technique beats brute force every time. When my turn came, I remembered Grandpa's lessons: breathing, focus, steady hands. Tina smiled. "Natural shooting stance," she said, and I swear, for a second, even Edwards looked impressed. We learned about commands, emergencies, maintenance, the works. Edwards never sugarcoated anything, which left more than a few kids shaken. At break, I ended up by the vending machines, feeling more alone than ever, when Sophia came over. "First time?" she asked, smile easy but eyes sharp. "Is it that obvious?" I replied. She laughed. "Not obvious. Just looks like you care a lot." That was the moment it clicked. Not about proving myself to anyone else, but living up to what Grandpa taught me. Doing things the right way, even when no one's watching. I'll tell you, when it came time for my first live fire, I could feel every stare on my back, Edwards watching from the side, Danny and his crew whispering. But I remembered Grandpa's words, took my stance, and fired, dead center. Then again, and again. By the end, I'd beaten every youth record on that wall, and Edwards? He shook my hand, real respect in his eyes. "No more jokes. But that's not the end. Because that old rifle I used,